Welcome into a special episode of the podcast. It's our annual NFL preview. I'm Will Highland, and once or twice a year, I'm joined by both Cam Chiesa and Kyle Diezel. And so that's where we are again today. It's Labor Day. We're the day after Labor Day, fellas. And I got to admit, this morning and yesterday, I woke up, went outside, smelled some fall in the air. It's September now. We're no longer in the summer. The NFL season begins on Thursday night in Kansas City, and there's a lot that we'll get to there with our annual NFL predictions. But where I want to begin, fellas, is in the college football world, just with an open-ended question. Then we'll get into the NFL. BC beat Florida State last night, a team that last year a lot of folks wanted in the playoff for college football. Number 10 ranked Florida State, mind you. They had already lost their first game to Georgia Tech. Then they lose their second game to Boston College 20-13 last night. So, fellas, what do we make about Florida State? Because I have been no friend of the Seminoles on this program. Cam, we'll start with you.
First of all, it's great to be with you boys again. We're back in the football season. And what a beautiful start to our college football season. The good news is we don't have to worry about any playoff doubts for Florida State this year. Just get that out of the way nice and early. They can go to the Mayo Bowl, no problem. Looking forward to that for them. But in all seriousness, what a great win for Billy O'Brien and that whole program down there. That's a program defining win early on in his tenure there. So I think it brings credibility to him already. And it really opens the door for BC to continue to build on a great start to this season. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. It's going to be a fun year, guys.
Kyle, you're not far from the Boston College campus. What's the
Nah,
mood like?
the mood has been outstanding. I could hear them all night long. The kiddos screaming and shouting, all the college kids. The practice facility is actually right across the street from where I live. So let's just say it was pretty rowdy. But it's great. I mean, it's great for, as Cam said, Brian to come in and just make a name for himself right there in college football to be one of the, going into the season, one of the top 10 ranked teams. Florida State losing last week and again now this week, it starts to raise some eyebrows now if they really are solidified as a football team, at least this upcoming year. So I give questions to what they're going to do going forward, because right now I don't think they have a shot of making the top 12 to go to the playoffs this year.
No, not in the ACC. That isn't, you don't snooze on the ACC. You know, they got some solid programs in the ACC. I know everyone's focused on the Big Ten and the SEC because that's who was, um, merged and got bigger this offseason with the Pac-12 and whatnot disbanding. But yeah, I mean, you don't sleep on that conference. I know Clemson didn't start great either. Miami isn't who they were, but I mean, that's still a respectable conference over there. NC State, I think, is a respectable program too. But now Boston College. We'll see what Boston College can do. And in New England, where we all live, we don't have a lot of FBS football in New England. We've got UMass, which is a joke on the football field. I believe, have just Boston College and UConn because everyone else
Yeah.
is FCS, who's Division One, Dartmouth, Maine, UNH, Merrimack. Those are all Stony Brook. Those are all FCS teams. So in terms of the big name players, that's what we Boston College is what we have. So huge win for them. They really haven't been relevant on the national stage since Luke Kuechly was there, or even way back at Matt Ryan. So and they really haven't had a season where I don't even know if they've been a 9-win team since then. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's still early. I'm not going to make any outlandish college football predictions like last year when Cam said Colorado was going to beat Oregon. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes with Boston College and Billy O. But speaking of, some Pacific Coast teams that made their way into the Big Ten, I mentioned that, Big 12. The Pacific Coast in the NFL is also intriguing because we've had some college coaches go into that side of the country. We'll talk about Harbaugh and the AFC West in a little bit. But where I want to begin, guys, is with the NFC West. And the big name going into this year in the NFL, a lot like Florida State in college, is the 49ers. And Cam's been high on the 49ers in years past. Kyle's obviously a noted Rams fan. He's got the shirt on. What do you guys make of this division? And Cam, we'll start with you. And just so the audience knows, our method will be how it usually is we're gonna go through each division by division. We're gonna talk about who we think is gonna win the division. We're each gonna give our picks at first in order of how they'll appear, and then we'll move on from division to division before getting to the playoff picture. But as it pertains to the playoff picture, I'm sure that San Francisco is going to be there for all of us. And so, Cam, where do they rank in your NFC?
Well, Will, this is an underrated division, competitive wise. I think this year, I'm gonna go. I'm big on the 49ers. I have them winning the division again. I think the Rams will be a strong second. Nothing to be slept on there. Seattle Seahawks I have in third, and then Arizona in the cellar in that division.
Kyle, what about you?
Similar to Cam, but I have it switched up. I have my Rams as number one over the Niners. Just looking at based on strength of schedule. So that's the only reason why I have them ahead in the West, and the Seahawks.
And then you, Kyle, just to make sure you're rounding out with Cardinals in fourth.
Yep, Cardinals in fourth, Seahawks in third.
All right. So what I have is also different. So we've got this is good. I like it when we start out different. I've got San Francisco winning the division. And I'll admit I don't have amazing notes in front of me. You know, I'm like Alex Cora in the bullpen. I'm making it up as I go. So I've got San Francisco winning the division, and then I have the Rams being second. Then I actually have Arizona third and Seattle fourth. I actually believe, and look, I think Arizona's defense is terrible. Maybe we can talk about that in a second. But I actually believe that Arizona could get lucky. Now, Murray hasn't played a lot of football. He hasn't played football in almost 20 months. But I just feel like they've got Marvin Harrison. He could pop. I know receivers, he might be good to win you a game. And I actually think this pick for me is less about Arizona being better and more about Seattle being worse. I just don't. First year without Pete Carroll in 10 years or so, longer than that, 12 years. First year without Pete Carroll. Quarterback Geno Smith, not great. Not a lot of people believe in him. He's on the back nine. He's played with fool's gold. I just don't think the Seahawks should be very good. I thought they should have blown it up last year and gone for Caleb Williams. Now I think they should blow it up this year and go for Quinn Ewers or Jalen Milroe or someone like that. I just don't. I don't think they're going to be very good. So that's why I have Seattle fourth. As far as the other two are concerned, we can debate that all day long. I think both teams have tremendous experience, and it might come down to who wins the divisional games. Cam, what about you? What are you thinking?
Well, I'll just touch on the Niners. I've been a staunch supporter of them. Not much new to say. You know, they did re-sign Brandon Ayuk. You can discuss the number and his value. The bottom line, he will be back for that team this year, giving Brock Purdy plenty of weapons. With this team, it's always about health. Fellas, we talk about health with this team, all teams, but really the Niners, when they're healthy and right, I don't think there's a more talented roster in football when they're healthy and right. Another year in the system for Brock Purdy. I just don't see them being touched. And I'll quickly just mention Seattle. Well, I get your point about I'm not a big Geno guy either. And Pete Carroll being gone is tough. I actually am a big believer in Mike McDaniel, the new head coach. He did a really good job with Baltimore's defense in his last stint. And I don't think it's worth enough to, push the Rams or the Niners, but I do think it's enough to maybe win a game or two. Like you're saying with Arizona, that's kind of my Seattle attitude. Win a game or two they might otherwise not have. There's always a few every year that don't go the way we expect it to on paper. The top two in this division is pretty well set for me. Again, you could argue division winner, depending on health, depending on divisional games, but it's a fun division. I don't think there'll be any crazy upsets here, but that's what I got for that.
Kyle, what's your rationale for you said strength of schedule. So
Correct.
you're saying that like San Francisco is going to play games that are going to be against other first place. Like they're going to play Dallas and they're going to play, because Dallas won their division. They're going to play the Lions, right?
Yep.
And they're who else are they going to? Because Dallas won the East last year, right? It wasn't Philly.
Yes, you did. They're going to play Tampa Bay, probably, right? They're going to play Tampa.
That's the other one. Thank you. They're going to Tampa Bay, Dallas, and the Lions. So, and then meanwhile, the Rams finished what, third last year or second?
I think second.
Second.
So they made the playoffs last year. So they're going to play the Eagles, probably the Packers, and then
the Falcons, I believe,
and the Falcons. So
not much of a change there for me personally.
I think, and then they were going to play the same other teams except for that. They will play the exact same schedule besides that. And then they might play one out of conference game that's different. Do you know by chance who the Rams out of conference game is that's not associated with the division?
Looks like it's the Raiders.
So they'll play the Raiders. So they get the West, but they don't get the Chiefs or the Chargers. So I get that. That is solid. Whereas I think the Niners might end up playing. They might end up playing the Chiefs or the Chargers or the Broncos, who I think are going to be much better than the Raiders. So I can see that. So that's your main rationale. All else equal, strength of schedule.
Correct. I believe strength of schedule, and I mean this is a very unpredictable team right now. I mean they lost Aaron Donald this offseason. Huge loss defensively, and we lost Raheem Morris, one of the best defensive coaches in the league. He went down to Atlanta. So for them, it's a big U-Haul on the defensive side, but they brought a lot of vets, brought a lot of young talent, and as we saw last year, they were the underdog team that no one thought.
Well, I mean, they won a Super Bowl a couple years ago. I don't think nobody thought.
I mean, going off of what goes on ESPN and all social media, I'm a big Rams guy. I follow it through and through, but I know they're all big butt lovers.
There's legitimate health questions with the Rams, Kyle, though. It's more about what does Stafford have left in the tank? What about Cooper Kupp? Those are my questions. I think those are the fair questions about your team.
Fair question.
I mean, nobody also, it is fair to say that nobody thought Puka Nacua was going to have like an all-time rookie season last year. So that's
that was
fair.
Special. That was special.
He's special. And Cam, one more point on the San Francisco topic, because I do think this is important. I don't think they have the best quarterback in the division, and I don't think they have the best coach in the division. I would put McVay on a razor because he's won a Super Bowl and been to another. So far, Shanahan is 0-2 in Super Bowls. So I don't think they have the most talent. I think it's easy to compare. I'd say like they're comparable. I think what San Francisco has is the depth at other positions, like depth at tight end, depth at
just the weapons. Well, I mean, there's so many. I mean,
Ayuk and Samuel,
George Kittle. McCaffrey's still the most valuable non-quarterback when healthy in the league,
right?
Offensively. So, I mean,
I would take Stafford over Brock Purdy in a vacuum
right now. Today?
Yes.
I would not, but
I like Brock.
I would take McVay over Shanahan, definitely. I'd give you that one. Yeah. I can see it all day. But I've been a Purdy supporter for forever, I think.
Oh, I like him. I'm not saying he's bad.
Yeah. No, you can go we can flip-flop. We can go back and forth on these.
It's a razor's edge.
These teams are good. Both these teams are good. The Rams are a good team. I'm not, we're sitting here giving Kyle a little bit of trouble, but the football team's good. And if they're healthy, and Stafford's arm stays in the socket, I think, they'll have something to say come December, January. So,
right. And the only reason they weren't good in 2022 is because Stafford got hurt.
Right.
And they had a Super Bowl hangover. Otherwise, So speaking of a hangover, we're not that kind of hangover, different kind of the Super Bowl hangover. In the AFC, or excuse me, the NFC North, I think there's a little bit of a Jordan Love Packer hangover going on. I think, and I'll let you guys talk first because I don't want to talk all the time. I think the Packers have a lot of smoke getting blown up them right now by Colin Cowherd, by Shannon Sharp, by all these people like Kyle was saying on TV and stuff. I'm not buying it. I think they're gonna have a little bit of a I think they might have a little bit of a letdown because their expectations are I think the Packers' expectations are unreasonable. But I'll let you guys go through your NFC North first. And they're not the only division while we're talking about hangovers and expectations. I don't think they're the only team in that division with big expectations that aren't going to follow through. I think
We're gonna
Detroit's
have
right
some
there.
fun here. We're gonna have some fun this division. I'm
So
telling you
I'll
right
let you
now.
guys go through and I'll go last. But Kyle, let's start with you with your NFC North.
All right, I've got to start. I got the Lions repeating as the champs of their division. I just like their team overall. Great team. Goff's gonna have an amazing year. St. Brown, great studded defense. I think they had a great draft this year, so I think they'll repeat. Packers. I don't know if there's smoke being blown up the Packers yet, but I still think the Packers are a solid team. I know that they just lost. What was it? I think it was their. Oh, what was his name? Was Dylan's? Forget drawing blank to his backup running back just got hurt, so their dual threat running back. Powerhouse with Jacobs is going to be a little bit stagnant now since they don't have that number 1-2 punch going into the season. And then I'm sorry, I got the Bears at number 3. I like the Bears right now over the Vikings since they lost their QB. That's the reason why I have the Bears ahead. Not saying I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan. I'm not a big. I think that's a team that's being blown up a lot of smoke. More in the Packers. But that's just my opinion. With if McCarthy was playing, I probably would put the Vikings ahead of the Bears. But I like the Bears with Caleb Williams and their threats at wide receiver right now.
Cam, good stuff, Kyle. I like it.
That was great. I mean, I was a big supporter of the Lions last year, and I did call their playoff win. I want to remind everybody of that, just in case we forgot. With all that being said, though, I am picking the Green Bay Packers to win this division over Detroit by a thin margin. I have Chicago as third and Minnesota fourth as well. Minnesota has a chance to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, I feel now. We can discuss this more, Will, about there's a lot of Packers-Lions conversations about two teams that have a lot of expectations on different ends of the spectrum historically, right? You have Green Bay, one of the most historic, successful franchises, and Detroit is known as the laughing stock along with Cleveland of the NFL for the last 60, 70 plus years. When I look at I'll just say a quick point. When I look at Green Bay, the first half of the year for Jordan Love last year was not great. And they still ended up fighting to be a wild card team. With these young quarterbacks, when they seem to find it, I've been a believer they're going to build on it. I like Green Bay's roster. The division's very weak. The pressure to repeat as division champion when you're not an established team in the NFL is hard. And we do see different division winners every year that we might not see. So I'm kind of going off of that more. I do think that Detroit is a good team that I do believe is going to be. They're great offensively. I think going through the heartbreak of last year and the mistakes actually helps your core group and hardens you and teaches you those lessons, and it makes you want to get back there. I think Dan Campbell and that crew is going to be competitive again. I just really like Jordan Love. I like what the floor's got. I like their weapons. Lambeau's a great home field advantage come December. Can't overlook that. And there's the mental aspect. The Packers, sidebar, the last couple of years, they've really owned this division since its inception. So that's kind of where I'm leaning there. It's a fun division. I think it's going to be top heavy. Kyle, you talked about Caleb Williams. I never got the hype with him. He lost 6 games at USC in a weak Pac-12. He's never seemed to care. Maybe he cares now that he's getting paid. I'm just not a fan of him. If you go 7-6 at a Pac-12 school and your number 1 pick, I don't get it. I never will. It's like what I said about Markel Fultz at Washington. Everybody said he was great. Guy won 9 games in his senior year. I'll leave it there. That's my comparison.
We're gonna take off in a second, Kyle. So hold that thought.
Yeah, I'm going.
I didn't go through, but that I like it when Cam gets on a roll. We didn't follow the prompts, but that's okay. Not everybody can follow a teleprompter all the time. All right. All right. So my NFC North, It's very hard. I think the Lions are going to win the division. I think the Packers will be second. I had made a prediction earlier, but that was before on my other pod by myself, but that was before JJ got hurt. So originally I did have the Vikings finish third. I do agree with Kyle. I think not having a solid quarterback, Sam Darnold is an abysmal quarterback in the NFL. I just want everybody to know. All right, well I'll entertain that in a second, and then obviously my fourth team, I have the Bears fourth, and I don't think the Bears are going to be horrible. I think the Bears, to mix sports, Kyle, you'll appreciate this, a lot like the Chicago Blackhawks might be this year in the same city. Young star that everyone's focused on, not going to be horrible, but still aren't going to make the playoffs. I feel very similar about them as I do about the Bears. As far as the JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold situation goes, let me just continue that. I think JJ McCarthy would be decent enough. Think Mac Jones in his first year in New England. Good, except with better roster and an offensive-minded coach. Although Jones had Daniel McDaniels in his first year, but think that. Think good enough, not great, not going to win the division, but you're going to entertain and be in the playoff mix. Sam Darnold, I want everybody to understand, is a disaster. He is a NFL quarterback's disaster. And everybody has known this for 5 years. And last year, I know we talked about, if Sam Darnold was quarterbacking the 49ers, they might still win the division. No, I don't think if he's quarterbacking anybody, they're going to win anything because he's horrible. And I thought that was an incredibly dumb move for the Minnesota Vikings, who otherwise have a great roster, good defense, decent defense, I should say, really good skill players, best receiver in the league on paper. And then they did what? They had no insurance plan for JJ McCarthy. No real insurance plan. Sam Darnold is not an insurance plan. He's who you quarterback if you want to finish 3-14 or whatever it is now. That's a disaster. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong for Vikings fans. They have a good team. Otherwise, they deserve to win games because they built something there. But JJ's just not it. And Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. Kyle knows this. But I don't think even he is good enough to make Sam Darnold a strong NFL quarterback. All right. Similarly, I believe Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold went to the same college, if I'm not mistaken. Did Sam Darnold go to USC? But not when Lincoln was there. All right. So on the Caleb Williams front, to piggyback off you guys, I don't think in 2023 that in college as a senior, he was the best quarterback in his own conference. I think Bo Nix was better. I think Michael Penix was better. And clearly they were because they were Heisman candidates. It should have been Caleb Williams Heisman to lose last year. In a stronger Pac-12 we saw.
Yes.
In a better team, USC was better as a team in 2023. We saw what they did to LSU the other night. I get it. They have a lot of sophomores and freshmen now that weren't there. The USC should have been better in 2023 than they were in 2022, and they got worse. And I actually think the kid in Utah a couple of years ago, whatever his name is, was better than last year, was better than Caleb Williams. And so if you're not confident in Caleb Williams' college game, he can have all the skill and be off the charts. But to me, he just reminds me of the hype train in the NFC North. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Because before the injury, it was the JJ hype train. Now it's the Caleb Williams hype train. Meanwhile, it's been the Detroit Lions have been anointed as a Super Bowl contender. Then you also have the Packers and Jordan Love, who people are talking about Jordan Love winning the MVP. So the hype train in the NFC North is incredible. And I forgot to ask you guys what you thought the most interesting division in the league is. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end. It could very well be this one, but I think it's going to come down to those division games at Lambeau, like you said, or in the Dome in Minnesota, where Minnesota's got nothing to play for, and you got to win that game. So that's I think what's going to determine this division. And in Detroit, look, Detroit's going to feel most of the time in wildlife, the lions are the hunters, right? They're not the hunted. They're at the top of the food chain. On the football field this year, the Lions are going to be the hunted. They're going to be the team that everyone wants to beat because for the first time in forever, to quote the great movie Frozen, for the first time in forever, they are actually relevant in the NFL world. And so I think they're going to be somebody that people look for. So, do you guys have any final thoughts? I know Kyle, it seemed like you had a thought on the NFC North before we move on.
No, I didn't have too much of a thought. I think it's pretty, like you just said, pretty explanatory. I mean,
Detroit's not the fun team anymore, Will.
yeah.
They're not the fun, lovable loser that's going to go 9-8. Now there's Super Bowl expectations. So I agree with that point. That is a lot to handle for a franchise that has never been in that situation. Really never.
Right.
So I think it's a great point. I think it's going to be interesting. A lot of hype.
Think about that year. Sorry to cut you off. Think about that year that was it 2021 or 2022 where Baker's Browns like almost beat Mahomes at home in the playoffs.
21, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Browns almost went to Arrowhead and beat Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The next year, everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, the Browns might win the NFC North." You haven't heard from him since. So it's the same kind of like, oh well, the Lions were right there with the 49ers last year. Maybe this year, no, I don't see it. So I don't see him. I still think they're going to win the division because I think they're good enough on paper. They'll probably finish 10-7 or 11-6 and win that division because everyone else is going to beat up on each other.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of beating up on each other, I'll start us off with the NFC East, and in the East, I have this one's hard because there's a lot of gray area in the East. I think Dallas is going to take a step back. I think Philly is going to win the division. It's hard. I think Dallas is going to take a step back. I think Washington's going to take a step forward, but I don't think they're good enough yet. And then I really think the Giants just they need something else going on there because what they've got is not it. And so I'll go Eagles, I'll go Cowboys, I'll go Commanders, I'll go Giants. Kyle, what about you?
I've got the same exact thing. I've got Philly wins the division. Cowboys, I think I agree. They took a huge step back. Didn't get anyone this offseason, let a lot of guys go. I mean, congrats, they signed Lamb, but I don't know if Dak Prescott has any O-line left or a defense behind him to protect the lead if they get a lead. I do think, like you said, the Commanders did take a step forward. I think signing or drafting Diezel was huge for them. They have a great young wide receiver core. You questioning them signing Eckler, though. Defensively, I think they're still going to be sound. I mean, they give Philly a run for their money the last 2 years. And then the Giants, as you said, I have no idea what the heck is going on down in New York with them. I'm scratching heads with everything. I don't know why Jones is still their quarterback. I don't get the whole fiasco going on down there. Not a Giants fan, but I know a lot of Giants fans are very confused on what's going on with their organization overall.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm a little contrarian then. I do have the Dallas Cowboys winning this division. I think not as close as people are thinking, at least in this conversation. I have Philly a second. Washington is taking the right steps in third, and the Giants, I won't piggyback anymore. Ever since they had that playoff win against Minnesota, it's been downhill from there for them. Complete, abysmal, pathetic situation there. A couple things that haven't been mentioned. You guys are talking about, well, Kyle mentioned, Dallas lost people, didn't get anybody. Two big subtractions for Philly. Jason Kelsey's retirement and Fletcher Cox no longer there. Those are two key pieces on the offensive and defensive line that have been focal points of their entire franchise that are no longer there. I think that matters quite a bit. People forget about the Philly meltdown at the end of last year. Some people kind of look past that. And even Will picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers correctly to beat them in the playoffs last year. Only one to do it, and they beat them soundly. So Good call on you. Good call, Will, on your part.
Fire those cannons! Fire them! Keep firing them!
That taste in my mouth is still there. You know,
Yep.
people, the hatred for Dallas, and believe me, I can't stand Dallas. But in the regular season, Dak Prescott, you could do a lot worse. This guy in the regular season, when he's right, puts up great numbers. Lamb's contract is back. Jake Ferguson at tight end. He can get the ball out quick.
You're talking me into the Dallas here.
The lack of running game actually might help Dak. More attempts. There'll be turnovers. They're going to score a lot of points. The defense can be good at times. I think this is going to be one of my more safe picks, in my opinion, for my division picks.
Yeah. Okay. So let's unpack this a little bit more. By the way, I think I'm making an adjustment. I actually do think Chicago's going to finish ahead of Minnesota. I hate to pick Minnesota last in that division, but Sam Darnold's a disaster. So we're going to leave that aside. We've left the North. So I am making an amendment there. As far as Dallas is concerned, I really wanted to pick Dallas to win this division. And it really, so far, these three divisions could go either way.
It could.
Right? Like, in terms of they have two teams that you can pretty much jockey for, and then they've got two teams that are jockeying for third and fourth. That's kind of how every division is so far. And I don't think the East is going to be much different. So you're right. Your point on Kelsey and Fletcher Cox is true. That's a huge loss for them. I also don't love Sirianni. I don't, as a coach, I think his Super Bowl year was a lot of, I think that year they made it to the Super Bowl was a lot of just everything's going right for them. And your meltdown point last year was true. I thought they were going to win their division. I didn't see a world where they didn't win their division, and then Dallas ended up doing so. So maybe I could be wrong again.
They lost to the Giants, like crunch time.
Yes.
Like bad. Sorry.
Yeah, and the one thing I do like about Philly that I'm not saying that they haven't ever had, because, I mean, they had Boston Scott and they had, other running backs in the past that were decent, but I think the addition of Saquon, even though I think his years of being a top 5 running back are behind us, I do think that's a good outlet for Jalen Hurts, because he still has Devonta Smith, his college teammate, and he still has AJ Brown, of course, who are, in the upper half of receivers in the league for sure. And so I do like the passing game in Philly, but I feel like Jalen Hurts needs to be a well-rounded quarterback in order to be at his peak. He needs to have a good running game. He needs to run himself, and he also needs to be able to throw the ball around the yard. And I think they're going to be able to do that. I guess my Dallas concern ultimately comes down, and my concern with both teams ultimately comes down to coaching. You have a lot of coaching question marks in this division. Well, a lot of time we talk about what's on the field for good reason. We've got Daboll in New York, who I'm not sure is cut out to be an NFL head coach. We'll see. I like Daboll, but I'm not sure he's cut out to be an NFL head coach. You have Nick Sirianni, who I think is a little fluky. You have Mike McCarthy, who's coaching for his job. And and then you have the Washington guy who I had never heard of before the offseason. So, and I still can't remember his name. And so I think there's some coaching question marks in this division that will ultimately probably decide what happens in crunch time in these games, and those games might decide who wins the division. Do you guys see a world where any of those guys get fired mid-season?
If I had to pick, Will, I'd go with Sirianni. A lot of pressure on Philly. I don't think Jerry won't fire McCarthy mid-season. We can discuss more about the future of the Cowboys coaching staff, but Dan Quinn, his first year, will get a chance to stay. Daboll will probably get a chance to finish it out.
Yeah.
I just think if Sirianni's got a chance to be fired, like let's just say if they're 5-6, if Philly's 5-6, you think he's going to stay? I don't see it. Or even if they're 500 mid-season, that's a disaster for them.
Dan Quinn, that's who it was. Yes, presided over the greatest Super Bowl collapse in NFL history.
So that's my point about if Sirianni, if they don't come out of the gate hot, that seat's going to be on fire for him. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Daboll gets axed just as a scapegoat. I like him. I think he should get a second chance with a good quarterback. You saw how he was able to develop Allen. if I'm the Giants, I almost tank for Quinn Ewers or you know any of those guys in college right now. The kid from oh, what's his name? Oh, it's
Cam Rising from Utah is a good
yes,
one
Cam
too.
Rising. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of earlier too.
I had a yeah. I mean, there's
Um,
Shador there. There's some quarterbacks in this class.
so if
Jalen
I'm them and
Milroe's
I've
there.
got Dayball sitting there, I'm not wasting Dayball's talent on as an offensive developer on freaking Daniel Jones. I mean, Daniel
That's
Jones is worse than Mac Jones, and Mac Jones doesn't even have a job anymore. So that's a starting job. So like I never understand why Daniel Jones continues to get a chance. Is it because he went to Duke? I have no idea. This isn't
they paid him so
basketball.
much money. Will they paid him a huge
Yeah.
$47.5 million
They
a
didn't
year
have to
contract?
do that.
No, they did not, but they did it. It's too late. They picked him over Saquon. They screwed themselves. The second they did that, because like I said in my point, when they beat Minnesota, remember that year they were their sixth seed. They went in there and they upset Minnesota and had a great year. And then everybody thought it was Jones's time to shine. And they felt the pressure to pay him early. They paid him early. They let Saquon mess around, and that was it. It hasn't been good ever since. So
And I
that's my
like they've got that neighbors kid from LSU who they drafted high. And
yeah.
so if you get a good quarterback in there with Brian Daboll, you could recreate some Buffalo magic. I don't know
It's
what
not
they're
with,
doing.
it's not with Daniel Jones. It's not going to happen.
And they got to figure that out quick because I think Hurts is around to stay. Look, he got paid. Jane Daniels in Washington, if he is what they think he is, then he could be there for a long time. And then you have Dak, who's an established veteran, whether you like him or not, he's an established veteran. So
Hey, Dak's Dak. He's there. He's going to
if
be there.
if they don't figure that out, the Giants could be bad for a long time. Kyle, any final thoughts on the NFC East? Oh, it looks like he's chewing.
I
Good timing.
No, I just Cam, if Fletcher Cox retired and they still have Dane Smith as their backup, so they have a great another tackle, defensive tackle in there. I think Philly's still going to be fine defensively. Solid team. Their secondary is questionable. They wasted I think 2 or 3 picks this year, so they're going to
I
be
think you're overlooking the lack of mental toughness and composure on that football team.
On Philadelphia.
Yes.
Look, I think Jalen Hurts is a great leader, and I think they have decent skill players. But the leadership, you're right. I can't name another guy on that team right now who I would look at and say, yep, that guy's a leader. Before it was Cox and Kelsey.
Right. And I'm not sitting here saying McCarthy's Mr. Poobah of leadership. I mean, that dude is an idiot. No question about it. But Dallas has historically, they found a way to win regular season games.
Yeah, regular season games for sure. And
yeah,
the only thing other thing that bothers me about Dallas is, Kyle touched on this when he said, that their offseason's been shaky, is they've made some weird news, and it's been a weird Dallas. Like Micah Parsons going out there and talking about, being a dynasty or whatever he said, like related to the Chiefs, is like, dude, like
not good.
Win a playoff game.
Make
for
the
first
playoffs
time since Clinton was president or something. Like win a playoff game.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Fact check me there, Media Matters. I don't know. I have no idea. But I'm not the Dallas Philly conversation will be one that I think we have all year, and we could be missing something. But I think that I don't think I think we're kind of all in the same sphere there in that ballpark. All right. Now, I told you guys what I thought was going to be the most interesting division in the league. I think the NFC South is the most interesting division in the league. And Kyle and Cam, Kyle, let's start with you in the South with your division winners, and Cam, you after, and then I'll tell you why I think it's the most interesting when I go through my picks. But Kyle, who do you have winning the South?
Yeah, for the South, I have the reigning champs of the South already. I have Tampa coming back. They're proving themselves already. They can win it from last year. I think they can do it again. They did lose a few key pieces this offseason with I'm trying to blank to what his name who just retired. But whatever. Staying solid defensively. I think they're going to be good offensively. They got a great young core at wide receiver. I think Carr's still going to drive the car through and try to get them there, but I don't think they're going to get quite there. I think Baker Mayfield just has his magic to win that division. Atlanta, I do think, has gotten better, I just don't think they're quite ready to take that next step where the Saints and the Buccaneers are right now. Especially with the drafting of the quarterback as your first overall pick. Questions there. I think there's a lot of questions overall right now there down there in Atlanta. And the Panthers are unfortunately the Panthers. Looking on paper, they might be up there as the worst team right now in the NFL, maybe with the Raiders, but that's what I have. Cam?
Well, great points. I mean, I have Tampa Bay in this division. I've been a Baker guy in this pot on this show for a long time, and it was really nice to see Baker get a little bit of vindication last year that he wasn't the only problem in Cleveland. He's not. He's far from perfect. He's not a top 5 guy, but I mean, he's an average to above average starting quarterback in this league. I like Tampa. I think 10 wins gets this division, maybe 9. I mean, we're being a little aggressive with that, but I think that's going to be enough. I have Atlanta second. I have a lot of questions about the quarterback controversy. Not sure about the Penix pick and the Cousins dynamic. That's going to be tough. Atlanta's always been Atlanta, right? Always underachieving. We don't know what to expect there.
Mm-hmm.
Saints are only third because the Panthers live in this division. Much like we talk about Darnold, I'm not saying Derek Carr is as bad as Darnold, but it's time to admit I love Derek Carr. He's a God-fearing man. I have a lot of respect for him. He's not the guy to lead a team to consistent success in the NFL. It hasn't happened. He's been in the league for nearly 10 years. It's not going to happen now.
10.
Yeah.
More like 12, but yeah.
I'm being nice on that. It's not, if it hasn't happened now, it's not going to happen. And the Panthers have the worst owner, not only in the NFL, but potentially in professional sports. Honestly,
that guy's a clown.
What David Tepper has done to that once respectable franchise is disgusting. His incident with the alcohol on the fans last year, stupid, ridiculous. He's a disgrace to the Shield. He also picked the wrong quarterback. Stroud has already been proven that he's way better than Bryce Young. And there was a lot of questions about that. The way he hamstrings the coaching staff, going to be a long year in Carolina. They're my pick to be the worst team in football. If I can go under 3.5 wins on them, I would. I don't. They have a lot of bad juju and really tough situation with the worst owner in pro sports. And potentially, this guy is like a level of James Dolan of the Knicks being that bad of an owner. Not quite, not the Donald Sterling level, but Tepper is trending the wrong way in terms of historically bad ownership in a record short period of time. So I'll leave it to you, Will, from there. But
okay.
Wanted to get my piece of Tepper out because I can't stand that guy.
All right. Well, it's all right. This is a safe space. You're in the trust tree. All right. We've completely also abandoned our procedure of naming the teams. I don't know who started that. It was probably me, but that's okay. All right. Here's why I think the NFC South is the most interesting division in football. If this division truly is bad, like if the Carolina Panthers are so bad that they're 2-15, and let's say the Saints, let's also point out the Saints aren't that good either. I think the only thing they have going for them is their skill players. Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, others. Other than that, they might be the first team to fire their coach also. Atlanta could blow up if Kirk. Let's not forget that Kirk got hurt last year. So we don't really know what he is in a new spot. They have some good players around him, better defense, underrated defense. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of old. And so this division could be super bad. And if it's super bad and you have a team that finishes 8-9 and wins this division and everyone else is god-awful, then that means that the rest of the NFC is going to rise, right? So then you're going to be looking at these other teams that are on the bubble, like maybe a Washington, maybe a Chicago, who knows? Maybe another third place team from another division can suddenly smell a wild card. That is what I look at in the NFC South and say that's what makes this division interesting. Is if they truly are bad, it could make the rest of the conference look better than it really is. Because I truly, we'll get to this more because this is our last division, and we'll segue into this. This conference as a whole isn't very good. They don't have a lot of Super Bowl favorites that you can point at and be really confident in saying that team's going to make the Super Bowl. But on the flip side, if Kirk has a renaissance in a new spot, bounces back from an injury, he's also a lot older than a lot of people believe. He's 36 or 35 at the youngest. If he's good and Atlanta's good and they're 10-7, suddenly it's Tampa, and let's say Tampa is 11-6. Now the rest of the conference is probably worse than we think. Maybe Arizona and their bad defense is incredibly bad down there with Carolina. Maybe the Giants truly are 1-16, gonna fire somebody. You know what I mean? Like, if the NFC South is good, then that means the rest of the conference is better than they're supposed to be. Worse than they're supposed to be. But if the NFC South is bad, then the rest of the conference is better off. And so I also have Tampa fire those cannons, winning the division. I think Baker in that roster still has a lot of Super Bowl winners on that roster. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin aren't young, but they're not super, super old either. I think Mike Evans is certainly on the back nine. But I think, he might have a year or two left in him. Chris Godwin, same thing. I really like Rachaad White, and so I like their offense. Their defense still has some dudes hanging around. Atlanta, I think you're right, Cam. The quarterback situation is going to throw a little bit of a wrench into maybe their team chemistry. They also have a rookie head coach. We'll see how that works out. The Saints, don't love the Saints right now. I like Chris Olave. I like Alvin Kamara. I don't really like anybody else. Still got some players on their defense, but not enough. And then the Panthers, I'm not going to say anything new about the Carolina Panthers. So that's where I'm at. As far as who makes the playoffs in this conference, let's wrap up the NFC because we're going a little bit long here, but that's all right. So in the NFC, who do you guys have 1-7 as your playoff seeds, and what's your championship game look like? Well, Cam, we'll start with you. Sorry, I didn't.
I'll just go right.
I'm like the
in
USA men's 100-meter relay. I didn't do the handoff properly. So, Cam, how about you pick us up?
Well, God help us if I'm on a relay team for this country. Anyway, all right. I'll go right in order, 1-7. 49ers, the 1 seed. Green Bay Packers, number 2. Dallas Cowboys, 3. The Bucs will be the 4. Lowest division winner. My 3 wild cards: LA Rams will be the first wild card in 5th. Detroit Lions in 6th. Thought a lot about the 7th one, but I am going to say the Philadelphia Eagles will make the playoffs. And Will, should I hit my conference title game now?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Based off how the playoff matchups are going to work, I did this bracket out earlier. I have in the NFC title game, I have the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions.
And you have Detroit as your 2 or your 3?
Detroit's my 6th seed. I have them beating the 3rd seed Dallas Cowboys in the first round. That's how I have that going.
So you have Dallas as your 3. You have Dallas as your 3. Green Bay as your 2.
Yes, I do.
And you have Lions and Packers in the NFC title game.
Yes.
That would be a historic game. Diezel, what do you got?
Let's see. I've got Philly at number 1. I got the Lions at number 2. I got the Rams at number 3. I got Tampa sealing it off at number 4. I got the Niners at 5. And I got the Packers at 6 and Cowboys at 7.
Packers at 6. Cowboys at 7.
They're the same teams, Diezel.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Different order, different division. I'll let you finish. Sorry, but
yeah,
different.
No,
Yeah,
this
different
is
order.
interesting.
Same teams, different order.
Much different order.
But I would have I'd have the semis being Phillies versus Niners, Lions versus Rams, a little rematch. And the conference final game would be the Niners versus Rams.
That would be fun. Didn't we see that a couple years ago?
We did.
Yes, that's when we didn't get the Jimmy G Tom Brady NFC title game because
I wanted that so
Todd
bad.
Bowles forgot to cover Cooper Cup. That was an insane game. All right, I'm just making sure I had this all down correctly. I love these picks, by the way, especially your title game picks. Those are two division rivalries in the title game. That's super fun. All right, let's just.
Both teams would have had to win on the road too.
Same with mine to an extent with the Lions.
Yeah. Okay.
And I got the Rams coming on top out of that division if we're doing that right now.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just making sure I had all this. Yeah, you have the Rams as your 3 seed, right?
Correct.
All right, I'm taking this down. We're gonna read some receipts in January. That's why.
And Will, I do have the Detroit Lions as NFC champion of my bracket.
Yes.
I don't think I said that.
And so Diezel has the Rams going to the Super Bowl, and you have the Lions going to the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yeah.
So I also have the same teams. I really wanted to put Atlanta in the playoffs just to be interesting, but as I was going through here, I couldn't come up with this. I'm looking at my notes. I couldn't come up with a situation where that made sense. So I've got the 49ers at 1, Detroit at 2. I think Detroit's barely going to get to 2. I think 2 through 5 in the NFC is going to be tight, and it's all going to be dependent on how bad the South is and how bad the East is. And for that reason, I have the West and the North taking up the top 2 spots. So I've got San Francisco 1, Detroit 2. Then I have Tampa Bay as a 3 over Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia, we pointed out, isn't in perfect team. And Tampa Bay, if they're truly in a bad division, they might be able to finish 11-6 and be better than Philly. All right. And then at 5, I have the Rams. At 6, I have the Cowboys. And at 7, I have the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers aren't perfect, but they're still gonna be a playoff team, even though I'm not in love with Jordan Love and his big paycheck. So instead of the Lions and the Packers playing each other in the title game, I have them playing in the first round. And ultimately, my NFC title game, I think, let's see here, let's tease this out. Them beat them, just to make sure I have this as a scenario that would work.
Did the same thing.
They win. Yeah, I should have done this at a time. I only had the. And they win.
It's okay. I'm doing my fantasy draft right now for all those listeners caring.
Okay. Have you made a pick yet? Who's your.
Yeah, the number 1 pick I wanted was taken already. So far, I've got Keen Williams and Chase.
All right. So I've got. Oh, that's a solid
the-
team. So I've got the Rams at the Niners in the title game, the opposite of what Diezel had. Instead of the Rams being the home team. And I have the 49ers going to the Super Bowl again. I know that's a safe pick, and I'm putting it on the line here because I correctly predicted Chiefs over 49ers last year in the Super Bowl, just putting that out into the ether. And I've correctly predicted 3 straight Super Bowl winners. So I'm putting that on the line tonight. But that's where I'm at. All right, boys. And at AFC, we speaking of fantasy drafts, the 3 of us, we have another one at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we got to hustle here. AFC. Let's start in the East. In the East, and let's try and stick to our procedure just so we can fully get the most out of this. I know it's hard. We love the NFL. We get going on it. But boys, I know last year there was some fireworks when I was down on the Dolphins. I just want everybody to know that I was right about the Dolphins too. This year, I'm telling you, anybody but the Patriots can win the AFC East. Anybody but the Patriots can win the AFC East. I think the Jets at their peak could be 12-5. But I also could see a situation where Aaron Rodgers looks a lot like 2022 Aaron Rodgers, a team in a division that's not very good and or top heavy, and depending on how you look at it, and he doesn't perform. So as I know I'm already breaking the rule, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. It pains me, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna go Dolphins, Jets, Bills, Pats. Kyle, do you want to go? Because I think Cam needs to digest it a little more.
Yeah, I mean, Will, to be honest, I had the same exact thing as
Wow.
you. I'm gonna my reason why is because I think
Okay, hold on. Whoop, stop.
Sorry, I let Cam go. Sorry.
Yeah, well, now that we know it's the same, Cam, you do you. Then we'll all jump in.
Give me the New York Jets to win this division. I'm going Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Pats.
Wow. Okay.
All right. So Kyle, what was your reasoning again?
I
Just now that we've aired it out.
I just like Miami playing, most of their games down Miami, where it's nice and warm. As we saw, they have the speed, and when it's nice and warm out, it don't matter who you throw the ball to or hand the ball off to for them. So that's the reason why I have them win the division. The Jets can compete with them. I just don't think they're going to be able to score as many points as Miami can. I just don't think it's plausible with that speed. I mean, yes, they had one of the best defenses last year. I get that, but I just think they're still too much better offensively. Bills, I think, took a huge step back with letting all their players go. I don't know if their draft picks are going to help them too much. So that's kind of why I let them drop down, let the Jets move up. I think Aaron Rodgers does make a huge difference for this offense. My big question for them is who's their number one wideout is my big question for them going into this year.
Yeah, Wilson.
And Pats are the Pats. Unfortunately, I just don't think they're quite ready to compete with those three teams.
You think?
So I'm with you on the Dolphins because I think last year what I was wrong about Miami is that Miami will turn a game into a track meet. They're incredibly happy doing that. That's not going to serve them well in December and January, but in an AFC East where they're going to get to play the Pats twice and they're playing a second place schedule, it's going to be the Bills who have to play the Chiefs. It's going to be the Bills who have to play the Ravens. It's going to be the Bills who have to play the Texans. It's and the Miami Dolphins are going to get to play the Pats twice. They're going to get, I think they could turn the season into a little bit of a track meet. And the Bills can't play track meet anymore because Josh Allen is one bad tackle away from being out for the season, and that team is in the basement with the Pats. He's getting to that point in his career, and I think it used to be it was the Bills division until it's not. Without Diggs there, I'm not in love with their weapons for Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to be running for his life. Their offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. They don't really have a good running game. I didn't love their draft. I think the Bills have taken a step back. I think Miami sort of stayed the same. I like McDaniel down there in Miami, Harry Potter, whatever his name is. He's decent. And then like the Jets, I think the Jets are going to be second because I think the Jets they're going to be playing a third place schedule with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers is even a fraction better with the rest of that roster, if he's even a fraction better than what they've had the past several years, honestly, they're going to be good enough to win 10 games. And that's going to, if he is good for them to win 5 games that they wouldn't have won before, that gets them in the 10-9 ballpark. I think they'll win more than that. And I think they'll win 10. And I think Miami might win 11. And that's going to be the difference. And then the Pats, I'm not going to, it is what it is. Drake May, I hope he's good. If he's not good, we're in trouble. That's basically it. That's the season because the defense is good, but If you want to watch them lose 13-7 with Jacoby Brissett all year, that's probably what you're going to get. So that's what's going to happen. At least it's better than Bailey Zappi, who I was told was going to be good, and he sucks. So not a Zappi guy here. Cam, why the Jets winning the division? Other than without mentioning Aaron Rodgers, why are the Jets going to win the division?
Robert Saleh's taken a lot of justified crap. He's really struggled with the limelight of New York. But one thing holds true. That man can still coach up an NFL defense. That Jets defense, you want to talk about facing adversity last year? Did a defensive unit have a worse draw than that team last year?
I mean, the Pats were pretty bad.
Right, but I'm talking about just like they were. A lot of expectation in the Jets. The Jets defense had all this thought about they're going to have all these points support. Didn't happen that way.
True.
Zach Wilson, you talk about Darnold being bad. Wilson makes him look like Brady. Well, Zach Wilson's terrible. He is awful. Bad, all around, not a great guy. It seemed to be like not a good quarterback. I'll leave the quarterbacks alone. I think defensively, they are good enough to keep that offense in the game without even mentioning the quarterback. And if they get better quarterback play, if they get 15% better quarterback play, and that defense holds true 90% of what they can be, that's enough for me in this division. Buffalo, again, you talk about Buffalo's not great. They've lost a lot. The Pats are the Pats. Dolphins will be fun, but the Jets can neutralize them, I think, to enough defensively.
Yeah. I think the Jets. I think the Jets give me a little bit of 2020 Tampa vibes. This isn't my take, so I'm not saying it's my take. I believe it was Dan Patrick that said this, actually. I'm not taking credit for this take, but I agree with him. They give me those vibes. Like older quarterback, good defense, really good skill players, good running game, well balanced.
I love Garrett Wilson. Yeah.
And literally Aaron Rodgers just has to go there, stay on the field, not turn the ball over, and they're probably going to win 5 or 6 more games than they did last year.
I just think it lines up so well with the third place schedule. It lines up so well.
That's like the Buccaneers in 2020.
Right.
And the Buccaneers didn't win their division in 2020. The Saints did, but that didn't matter in the playoffs, right? Because you had a battle test the quarterback, and we know Tua is not that. So interesting. Okay. AFC East, I like it. All right. North, I've got Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, Browns. Kyle, what do you have?
I got an interesting one. I've got Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Steelers.
What?
That's what I have too.
Wow.
And I'll just say one thing, Diezel. We agree for the first time tonight.
I
love Joe Burrow. I'm just concerned with his body. I'm concerned with the health.
Same. I'm concerned.
I'm concerned with the health,
especially with them to get enough to protect him.
Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst has been gone. The weapons there are not the same. No Joe Mixon. He wasn't a perfect, but there's virtually no running game in Cincinnati now whatsoever. Their defense is not very good with the Bengals. Well, I'm curious what you think about why you like the Bengals so much. Their defense is not good.
I don't love them. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were in 2022 or 2021 easily. Like full stop. All right. So I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think they're the fourth best division winner in this conference.
Better than Baltimore?
No. Okay. I meant in the conference. I meant by them winning the division. I'm not saying they're going to be the 1 seed. All right. I'm just putting that out there.
I get you.
They remind me sort of like of Philly. They're trying to rekindle something from a few years ago. That it remains to be seen whether it's there. The reason why I'm sort of on them is that I really wanted to pick the Ravens to win the division. But the Ravens had a lot of turnover on their roster, for the better and for worse. And so I don't know how that's all going to work on paper. Now, I trust John Harbaugh. He's had a 10 year, he's won a Super Bowl. They consistently make the playoffs. I'm just not really sure. I mean, they rely a lot on the run game.
Derrick Henry doesn't excite you at all?
What?
Derrick Henry's addition.
No, he excites me, but is he a top 5 running back anymore? No.
Does he need to be? Does he need to be with that team?
Depends on. I mean, they do. So I'm more talking about the Ravens now than the Bengals, but I don't love Joe Burrow off an injury either. But in
Multiple injuries.
right. But in 2021, he was coming off an injury, and he looked pretty good when they went to the Super Bowl. And Jamar Chase is playing for a contract, or he just got one. T. Higgins was playing for a contract. I think there's enough there for them to win 10 games. And the reason why I think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to sneak away with that division is look at the track record in this division, guys, the past couple of years. There's been the team that sneaks away with it. I also don't think Pittsburgh's going to be as bad as you guys think they are. So
I agree with you.
So I think Pittsburgh and Baltimore challenging them, beating up on each other, because that's a huge rivalry. You might have a situation where the Bengals win the division at 11-6. The Steelers are in third at 9-8, and the Ravens are in second at 10-7. And I'm not saying because that's how this division has looked every year for like a 10-year period. If you look back at it, even the year that Pittsburgh started out 11-0 or whatever it was, and ended up barely making the playoffs and losing to the Browns, or the year that the Bengals came out of nowhere and won the division, but barely, or last year where Lamar silenced all the critics, myself included. I just think this division's weird. It's weird. The stuff happens. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a playoff team as a 3 seed. So we'll get to that in a second. I think a lot of people are down on Wilson because the media told you to be down on Wilson. If you look at the stats on an abysmal team where Sean Payton didn't want to coach him, he threw 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. If the Patriots, with their defense and their coach, last year had a quarterback, or hell, if the Jets had a quarterback that threw 26 touchdowns and 8 picks, they would have made the playoffs. All right, so a lot of people are down on Russ because whatever, it's been 10 years since they won the Super Bowl or whatever. I don't think he's that bad. And if he is, guess what? They've got Justin Fields, who a lot of people for some reason are high on. I don't see it, but who knows? I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. So I just see that division as it's not as bad as you think it is.
I just feel your logic with Cincinnati's right, but it's the wrong team, right? If I'm going to take a team that has quarterback issues or injuries, I'd rather have Cleveland's team. Much better defense. I just like if you're going to have a team slot into that role, like if my choice was can either have a Burrow-less Bengals or a heavily less Burrow playing for the Bengals or Cleveland in their situation, I would rather have Cleveland. And that's in that particular situation. And if you're down on Baltimore, I believe the logic would say, I almost pick Cleveland for this division, honestly, just because of that logic right there.
Really?
You have the right logic. I just don't see it with the Bengals.
The logic I have with the Bengals is that their roster is only 3 years removed from a Super Bowl, and a lot of those guys are still there. Health injury or not, you still have a top 3 receiver in the league. All right? And a quarterback who you a year ago thought was going to win the MVP.
I love him. I love Burrow.
Just saying, if injuries are injuries, look.
Yeah.
I mean, Brady tore an ACL in 2008 and won multiple MVPs after that. Look, like Lamar won an MVP with an injury history. Okay,
hey, I was in the boat with you about. I was a very much Lamar critic, and he required to be down last year. So
yes, exactly. And so
I agree with
think
that.
about all the injury problems we talked about. The Ravens last year. The Ravens were 1 win away from the Super Bowl.
The one choke job away from being in the Super Bowl. Absolutely.
So, Kyle, what are we off base? And why are you guys so down on the Steelers? Can you guys answer that for me before we move on to the South?
I mean, you got the quarterback controversy going on down there.
I don't think it's a controversy.
I don't either. I think it's an easy job for Russell Wilson.
Continue. Sorry.
You don't have a number 1 set running back there. I don't really trust their offense overall. Their defense is solid. Their offense, I don't trust overall. But I don't.
What do you mean? They have a Najee Harris, Freiermuth, Pickens. I mean,
I wouldn't call any of them superstar players right now in the league.
They have a top 5 defense in the league, I would say.
Right. That's my point. They don't have to be. They're better than.
Yeah, but I think everyone else in their division overall has better depth and overall.
I don't think the Browns have better depth.
Players. The Browns, I think, they're in one of the best defenses in the league last year.
Okay, guys, explain. Okay, Myles Garrett's amazing. I agree with you. He's probably the best defensive player in the league now. TJ Watt is right there too, which is my point. Um, why why are why are we so excited about the Cleveland Browns? The defense only? Is that it? Like, because the defense
Well,
is pretty good,
Will, I could
but
argue, and I could argue that if we're just comparing Pittsburgh and Cleveland for this situation, I would like to believe at least if we're talking just the ceilings, I believe the ceiling for Watson could be way higher. Not saying it's going to happen. It hasn't happened. And I'm not believing that's going to be the reason. But if I had a choice of today, right now, of the ceiling of who's going to perform better in a perfect world of Wilson or Watson, I'm kind of giving a little bit to Watson.
see, I disagree with you. You guys,
I know you do.
it's
I
been
know you
10
do.
years. People will
I
say,
know you
this
do.
is what drives me nuts about the NFL. All right. People will say, oh, well, Russ hasn't looked good since he left Seattle. Okay, first of all, he, in the meantime that he's left Seattle, gone to Denver, and ended up in Pittsburgh, Watson has played how many NFL games?
He hasn't played a lot. He has not played a
4,
lot.
5?
He's been suspended a lot. No question. He's been
Suspended,
injured a
injured.
lot. Yep.
Hasn't played a
100%.
meaningful game since the 2020 season? Like,
Probably the same as Russ. Yeah, I would say.
I mean, dude, like as bad as the Broncos were, they were in a playoff contention in the last week of the season. Like, just I think we
Yeah. No, I'm not a Russell Wilson hater. I'm not going against that.
and I think Mike Tomlin and Sean Payton have both won Super Bowls, and so like he's literally just going, in my opinion, to a better situation. And I think
with the better team for sure.
Russ going to Pittsburgh and having Justin Fields behind him isn't a controversy. I think it's good for him.
So do you have Pittsburgh like fourth in the division? Where do you have
I have
them?
Pittsburgh third, Cleveland fourth.
Okay.
I think Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs I think you're getting 3 playoff teams out of
I just remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of
all right.
Yeah, I'll leave it there. It's a weird division. It
is super weird. You know what's not weird though is the South. The South to me is
easy.
Pretty bad. What do you guys think of the South? So I had Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Tennessee.
That's the only answer. That's the only answer.
And I don't even think Houston is going to be better than last year. I think they're going to be about the same, but that's all they need to be.
That's the only answer for me.
Yeah.
I agree.
What about you? What about you, Kyle?
What'd you have, Will, again?
I had Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Tennessee.
Oh, I had Houston, Colts, Jags, and Tennessee.
So yes, you just mixed Jags and Colts. I can see that. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars still have enough talent, and I like their coach. But
I like their skill.
Similar to how we were talking about Derek Carr earlier, about how, okay, eventually you have to show us that you're the guy. Trevor Lawrence was billed as the best pro quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. And he's the only one left from that draft that is still on the team he began with and still has a job.
Crazy.
And I believe, because you had him, you had Zach Wilson, who's not on the Jets. You had Mack, who's not on the Pats. You had Fields, who's no longer on the Bears.
Is that Trey Lance's draft too?
And then Trey Lance is no longer on the right. So he's the only one left who still has a starting job and is still on the same team. But eventually, like with Carr, he's going to have to win something. And so I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back. I still think they're going to be in the playoff hunt. But I don't know you're a Florida guy, Cam, but I don't love Anthony Richardson as a pro quarterback.
He can't play all the games well. I think he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
I like the guy to watch. Great dude. Is he ever going to play 17 games? I don't see that.
No, never.
Never.
Rarely.
Is he going to play 12 games? Will? Is he going to play
if
13? If he plays 10 games this year, it's a win.
See, I think Hendon Hooker would have been drafted above him if Hendon Hooker didn't get injured in college.
People forget how good Hendon Hooker was at Tennessee before he blew his leg out completely.
Yeah, that year they were going to make the playoff.
Yes.
They were going to make the playoff if they didn't lose to South Carolina. And they beat Florida in a game that year.
Yeah, I know.
but I guess my only other point, Kyle, feel free to jump in, but with the Titans is like, quarterback stuff aside, that roster's just been on a, wheel of change for too long now.
Yeah.
And Mike Vrabel's not there anymore, right? Or
Yeah.
is he still there? No,
He's
they let
not.
him
No,
go.
he's in Cleveland as a special
Yeah,
assistant
yeah, yeah.
now.
They let him go. That's what I thought.
They let
It's
him
been
go.
so long since the offseason began. But Will Levis, don't love. DeAndre's older, like him. Calvin Ridley, they overpaid for. They lost, what's his name there, the running back, Henry. So their offense is in a little bit of a transition. Their defense has never really been strong this entire
Never.
time there. Um,
Never.
and the Titans had their window a few years ago, like when you had a prime Henry, you had prime AJ Brown, and they just had a bum quarterback in Tannehill, and they're never going to get that window back, right? And
No.
so that's why they're there. I think they should. I honestly think they should make a play for one of these kids. Who knows? Maybe that Hawaiian kid from Tennessee could be good in a couple of years. Maybe they should just plan for that. But ultimately, I don't see the Titans being good at all. Um, can't. Why did you have Diesel? Why did you have the Jags in third over under the Colts?
I just like the Colts quarterback situation better. I think Richardson, if he's come back healthy,
Never gonna play.
what?
Sorry, go
He's
ahead.
never gonna play. Sorry, keep going.
Never
He'll
gonna
come
play.
back. I swear he'll come back. But they also have Joe Flacco as their backup, so I'm not too worried about that. So they got a veteran who can get them there to the playoffs. So I trust them. Better defensively, they're a solid team. They have arguably one of the best linebackers in the league, one of the best tackles in the league as well. So I think that like overall sound, they're solid. I mean, their skill position for wide receivers could be a bit better. Definitely Jags have a better advantage at that, but I do like their quarterback situation and their solid offensive line.
Where's the offense coming from? Jonathan Taylor is not that guy anymore. This is not 3 years ago.
Oh,
I
I
don't
know.
know where are they scoring. I don't see what offense is coming from Indianapolis. I don't see it. They're not great defensively. They're not really
Pittman's
elite
okay.
at anything. They're okay. They're not great. They're not gonna. That's not gonna cure you. You got a
No.
quarterback that's banged up. You got an old running back that finally got paid. I don't see it. I don't see that.
We'll wait for the season.
Well, yeah, that's why
Yeah.
we played it.
To me, this division's weird. I mean, we're not weird. I should because I led with
It's
it's not
Houston
weird.
and the rest of the crew dancing
Yeah, it's
around.
not weird. Weird's the wrong term. It's more just like you kind of know
Yeah.
what to expect, but you're wondering if that's truly going to happen. All right. Speaking of something that's truly going to happen, I think if you don't pick the Chiefs to win the West, you're kind of crazy. Um, but I have the Chiefs, then I have the this is where it gets interesting. I have the Chiefs, and then I have the Chargers, then I have a tiny gap, then I have the Broncos, because I think a lot of people are selling Bo Nix short, and then I have the Raiders who are going to be bad. What do you guys have?
Can I jump in with that? Well,
Yeah,
because
just list your four, then we'll hash it out.
yeah, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Same.
Okay, same as me. Okay.
Yeah.
So since we're all the same here, I think this might be the first time we've agreed completely, and it's our second to it's our last division. I think the Chiefs we don't have to talk about. We'll talk about them in a second when we talk about the playoffs. Chargers, interesting with Harbaugh there, what that's going to look like. I have to imagine a stable coaching environment and a good draft is enough to net them probably 2 or 3 wins over last year. And last year they were 5-12. If they get at least 2 or 3 wins, but more likely than that 4 or 5, they're knocking on the door of the playoffs. Meanwhile, I think the Broncos in a similar position, addition by subtraction with a toxic situation with Russell Wilson, a decent draft for them too. Still have Sean Payton. They've got a very capable young quarterback in Bo Nix. Think 2021 Mac Jones again, right? Not going to make a lot of mistakes, not going to wow you, but is going to make a lot of early throws. And this time it has the offensive coaching, unlike Jones. I think they are probably good for maybe a win or two, and they were 8-9 last year. So they are also going to be knocking on the door. So they're going to be very close to each other in the standings. The Raiders, they were also 8-9 but they did not draft that great. I do like Brock Bowers, but a tight end's not going to win you a division or do much of anything to you. So that's where I stand on those three teams. Are you guys sort of in agreement there?
I just want to touch quickly on Bo because Will, you and I have talked privately. We're both big Bo Nix guys. I'm not sure why Bo Nix was picked after JJ McCarthy and Drake May. What I saw on tape from Bo through his collegiate career was much better arm talent wise than those guys. Um, Chargers, I'm obviously a Michigan fan. I think Harbaugh is a quarterback guru. I think he's worth a lot to Herbert's development. That Chargers team we discussed, we've had jokes on this podcast for years about how bad Brandon Staley was. Like you said, well, a consistent coaching staff in LA is, I think, enough to make that team a playoff contender. And then I'll just touch on the Raiders real quick. Complete tough situation. A nice storied head coach with Antonio Pierce, but I don't see much success happening with them this season. I'll leave it there.
How you in agreement on the Chargers and Broncos being better than last year, considering their changes they made at coach and quarterback?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only thing for the Chargers, they lost their two best receivers, which I think they'll be fine. I think they drafted some secretly good wide receivers that could be up and coming in the next year or two. So I think they'll be fine. Alvaro will help, like Cam just said, help him find his way, build that team to be successful. Denver's on its way up with their quarterback, as you guys just talked about, and the Raiders are the Raiders right now. They have a potential quarterback being partial owners with them, one of the greatest of all time, but they didn't draft anyone to help improve.
We almost made a whole podcast without Brady. That's pretty good for us. And it wasn't even a Pats fan, Will. It wasn't even a Pats fan this time.
No,
Not
you're
bad.
right. It was. I think you compared. You said that Darnold would look like Brady compared to Zach
I
Wilson.
did. The folks were
And I
catching
also
on that.
brought up Brady's ACL injury in 2008. But yeah, we were pretty close. All right, guys. So one last point on Nix. Just because a lot of people are like, the media told you guys that Bo Nix was overrated because there was all this hype about him when he was a freshman at Auburn. Believe he started in the SEC as a true freshman, by the way. Just want everyone to understand that. But then that sort of created a hype train around him early on in his collegiate career, and then he had to leave Auburn. He went to Oregon. A lot of people this and that. They didn't love him at Oregon. I thought he was so good at Oregon that he was going to beat Colorado soundly, which he did. All right. And had Michael Penix not had an amazing run with Washington, I think Oregon's a playoff team last year. So I loved him in college. I think Bo Nix is solid. And I think he should have been drafted fourth. I can see why people went with May because of the hype from 2022 and the fact that he was younger and a little bit more of a project, whereas Nix was a little bit older and sort of more established and depended on what the Pats were looking for. If the Pats wanted to compete for the playoffs this year, they probably would have drafted Bo Nix. If they wanted a 5-year rebuild where they might be, Mahomes-like in 5 years with Drake May, the tools are there for Drake May to be Mahomes-like. All right, so that's just what I'd say to your point there. I'm just saying the tools are there. Is it going to happen? The tools are also there for Caleb Williams to be Mahomes-like.
Tools are there for Ryan Leaf too. It didn't work out, but
right, exactly. I'm just saying.
I'm with you.
The reason they took May is because of the ceiling, not what. Right now, I think Bo Nix could make the Denver Broncos a playoff team, and that is why I'm interested in them. But what I'm more interested in is, can the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat? All right, and this is let's lead into our AFC playoff seedings. I'll let you guys go first, and just so I can make sure I get these written down. Cam, let's start with you. What are your AFC picks?
Chiefs as the 1 seed, Houston Texans 2, Baltimore Ravens 3, and the New York Jets 4. First wild card, I'm going to go with Miami Dolphins. In the 6th spot, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. And then my final playoff spot, I'm taking the LA Chargers.
Kyle, what about you?
I got similar, but a little bit different. I got Houston at number 1. Chiefs at number 2. Then I got Miami at 3 and the Ravens at 4. At my first wild card spot, I got the Cleveland Browns. Number 6, I got the Jets. And at number 7, I've got the Colts squeezing in there by a small margin.
Okay.
That would be the call.
Can you tell me your 2 seed again, Kyle? I know this isn't great content for the listeners, but
The Chiefs.
all right, of course. All right. And then who was your 6?
6 is the Jets.
Who's your 5? I was missing one here.
The Browns.
Oh, all right, all right. I was missing somebody here, and I'm like, who am I missing? All right. Interesting, guys. I like it. I like it. I really do. All right. This is where it gets fun because I'm different. I'm different here. This is what's crazy is I don't have the Bills in the playoffs, and neither do you guys, which is wild, considering the Bills have been right there in the playoffs for like a good solid 5-year period. What I find even more fascinating is that the Jags aren't there, and we're in year 5 for any of us, and we're in year 5 of Lawrence. You know, or year 4, excuse me. We're in year 4 of Lawrence, and the Jags aren't there. And he's the only one left from that draft, as we talked about. The other interesting thing is the Baltimore Ravens had the MVP last year, and none of us except Cam have them higher than Cam has them at 3, Diezel has them at 4, and I have them at 6, which is just wild. So it just goes to show the AFC. Diezel has the Texans at first. It wasn't a couple of years ago that the Texans were considered one of the worst teams in the league. So it's a crazy, crazy situation. For me, it's simple. It's the Chiefs conference until it's not. All right. It's the Chiefs conference until it's not. I have them as my number 1. I have Miami as my number 2. Regrettably, I wish that this wasn't true because I think the Dolphins are a soft team. But I've got them as 2. 3, I have the Texans. I think they're good. I don't think they're good enough to be a 1 yet. 4, I've got the Bengals. Like I said earlier, I don't love the Bengals. The Bengals, I think, are going to be 1 and done, but I still think they can put together a division championship. At 5, I've got the Chargers. I think the Chargers with Harbaugh, again, like I said, they net them a few wins a year. The Ravens still have a solid team around them. I like Derrick Henry. I know, even though Cam thought I didn't. I've got Derrick Henry and Lamar and those guys coming in 6. And then at 7, I have the Steelers. I did. Look, Russ was so bad last year, they benched him apparently, right? Well, guess what? They were still 8-9 on the verge of the playoffs. I think him going to the Steelers, he makes them better. They make him better. I just want to point out one last thing about the North, because that's where I made this pick interesting. Is the North last year, everyone was 2 through 4 was separated by a game. You had the Ravens at 13-4, won the division. Then you had the Browns at 11-6, the Steelers at 10-7, and the Bengals at 9-8. I think the Steelers and the Bengals underachieved last year because of mostly quarterback play, because Burrow was hurt, and I can't even remember who the Steelers had. Was it Kenny Pickett? Right? They were no good. Both of those teams have an upgraded quarterback this year. You have Russ, and you have hopefully a healthy, for their sake, Joey Burrow. So that's why I think it's going to be a little bit different out there. The West and the North, I think, are going to drive the whole conference. It's a fascinating conference. And in the AFC title game, give me the Chargers at Chiefs. Just for grins and giggles. Give me Chargers at Chiefs in the AFC title game. What about you guys?
Cam, I'll let you go.
I have Texans and Chiefs. A little more chalk.
They're playing in Texas, not Arrowhead.
All right.
Okay.
I don't think Houston football has ever had a game as big as a possible AFC title game in Houston. Ever. Collegiate, pro, Oilers, whatever they used to be. So that'd be wild. I've just never in my life seen the Texans win more than 1 playoff game in a row. So I have a hard time believing it, even though I like CJ Stroud. We didn't talk a lot about him tonight. Maybe we will in a second. But I like the Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. I know that's so stupid. Sounds like you guys might have the Rams and Chiefs possibly based on your other picks, or maybe did you have the Lions and somebody picked the Rams?
I haven't said this yet, but I have Houston going to the Super Bowl. I have
Well,
Houston. I have Houston, Detroit.
That would be a really bad Super Bowl for marketing, just so everyone knows. It would be cool for the game, but I don't know if that would
It
ever
would
happen.
be if you want to bet that matchup, the game special. That'd be something if it
I've got
happens.
I've got the Chiefs Super Bowl.
You have what? Rams,
With
Chiefs? We've been waiting a few years for that. It's like 6 years to be exact, and we haven't had it. Yeah, I mean, I think that solid. There's merit in all of them. I know this is stupid, but I think the Chiefs are going to three-peat.
No,
It's hard to bet against them. You're the champs till you're not. Obviously, I'm
Right.
picking against that, but it's more about my belief in the other team.
To
with
me,
getting
it's
to
my
the Super
belief in the inevitability. Like, is there another
Bowl.
team in the AFC that has the three things you need? Experience? No, there's not. Coaching? No, there's not. I don't think there's a better coach in the AFC than Andy Reid. I don't.
There's not. There's not currently.
And quarterback, I don't think there's a quarterback in the league better than Mahomes. So they have experienced coaching quarterback. They have a better defense. Spagnuolo's defense is very good. That's what won them the Super Bowl last year.
Mm-hmm.
And people will talk, oh, Travis Kelce's old. Oh, they drafted Xavier Legette.
Yep.
And they drafted Jared Wiley.
Yep.
Very underrated draft picks. They're sending it. And I know their running back got hurt. Was it Edwards-Helaire? He got hurt the other day. Pacheco, I like. I like Harrison Butker as a kicker. We're not going to get into that, but I like Harrison Butker, right? He's not going to miss too many kicks for you. I don't know. They seem like the Patriots back in the day. If the Pats had gone back to back in 2014 and 15, had they not lost to Denver, would we have gone into the 2016 season and said, "Nah, I don't see it with the Pats this year"? No, we wouldn't have said that.
No way. Yeah.
When the Patriots went back to back in 03, 04, did anybody in 2005 say, "Oh, I don't know if Belichick can handle it anymore. I don't know about this Brady guy"?
You have a great look. Well, and I don't think anybody here is saying, my picks are more about I'm playing the odds a little bit, and I'm saying that I'm seeing a bigger step than most with Houston, maybe. So that's kind of I'm banking on a lot of things. I like D'Amico Ryans. He's not Andy Reid right now. Could he be the best coach in the AFC one day? Hard to tell. I like him a lot. It's early. Got to put it on paper more, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Kyle,
It's hard to pick against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and Kyle's jumped out of this discussion because he hasn't told us who he has winning his game, even though it's the Texans have home field advantage.
Oh, I have the Chiefs. That's an automatic. I mean,
Yeah.
the Chiefs
Oh yeah, that's right.
Automatic.
You did say that. My bad. You did say
Automatic.
that.
Write that down. We'll see. We'll see about automatic.
they
Yeah.
find their way. It's just like what the Pats have done. They've always found a way. The Chiefs always find a way. Always find a guy when they need it.
So do you have the Rams winning the Super Bowl, or do you have the Chiefs winning?
I have them upsetting the Chiefs this year.
So you have?
Oh, they don't find a way there,
Yeah,
though.
I was
Huh?
gonna
They
say.
don't find a way. You're
They find a
baloney.
way until they play his team.
Actually, I think it's automatic that the Chiefs would beat the Rams in the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
No.
If we, yeah.
McVay will
automatic.
McVay will find a way and put it all to bed.
Okay. My last thing before we get to MVP, the Niners might be entering 1990s Buffalo Bills territory.
Oh, scary but true.
They might be entering that territory. Not obviously. I don't think you'll ever see a team go to 4 straight and lose again. I don't think that will happen again because it's just so hard to make 4 straight Super Bowls.
Competitive. Yeah.
The Pats made 4 out of 5, and the Chiefs have made something like 4 out of 5 as well. But
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see that. But from a go to the conference championship / Super Bowl and come away with no Lombardis, we might. I mean, we're entering that territory. If you go back as far as 2019, we don't have to do that now because we're running short on time. But I think they're entering that territory. Now, earlier, speaking of the 49ers, you mentioned how Christian McCaffrey was the best non-quarterback, most valuable in the league. I'm not going to do this year. I'm not going to say, is it going to be a position player besides QB? I take it it's probably going to be a quarterback. Who do you guys have winning the NFL MVP?
I
Kyle?
Yeah,
I
sorry, Kyle.
CJ Stroud.
Ah,
I knew we were going to talk about him later. I
you have
teased.
to take my pick, dude. I have CJ Stroud as well.
CJ Stroud does sort, if you're going to talk about somebody with a Mahomes-like trajectory, not saying he's going to be Mahomes, but come in the first year as a starter, make the playoffs. Second year was the year when Mahomes technically became the starter and had an MVP-like season in 2018. I could see that. I'm not dissing on that pick. For me, it's super hard. It's really difficult because I see all these teams I'm looking at right here.
A lot
And
of
it's just
stories.
all these great possible picks. Ah. Okay, I'm gonna go off the board because I don't know. This feels like a reach for me, but who knows? I'm going Herbert, and the reason why is he's got a coach different. We know he has the talent. Where we've been waiting on it. This is year 5. This is probably his last year before he enters Derek Carr like territory. All right. If truly what he needed was a solid quarterback, like look at what Harbaugh has done with Alex Smith or Colin Kaepernick in this league, or at Stanford with Andrew Luck, or in the pros with JJ McCarthy, turning him into it. He literally turned JJ McCarthy overnight into a 5 overall pick. So if Harbaugh's the quarterback whisperer and he gets there and makes Herbert have a second year, let me just say Herbert for the sake of being different.
Don't hate it. I like it. I like Herbert. I like
We know
Harbaugh.
he's going to put up yards. It's just a
Yeah,
matter of will he throw enough
Jim's
touchdowns.
gonna throw. They're gonna throw the ball in that offense. Like
But no Eckler anymore, which will hurt his completion percentage. No Keenan Allen anymore. Or was it not? No, who was the receiver they lost? Was it Keenan Allen?
Ian Allen and Mike Williams.
Yes. Yeah, you had mentioned that earlier. So that could hurt him. But if he puts up numbers without those guys, that helps his MVP case. All right. Any last thoughts, guys, before we head in? We got our draft coming up, so we're gonna be heading to football. Apologies to all the significant others out there. It's football season. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I think it should be a very fun and entertaining, not just NFL season, football season in general, combining college and NFL, especially with how they have the games scheduled this year. We've got
Yes.
a great game. I think 4 out of the 7 days each week until we get closer to November and December, and we've got almost every day a good game going on, and it's going to be madness. It's going to be great. We haven't had this. I mean, we got the college football. We're having 12 teams make the playoffs. This is phenomenal. The NFL's ramping up. We're going to have some great teams, great competition. I'm excited to see what happens this year.
Yeah, dude, you're right. It's basically gonna be every night but Tuesday and Wednesday you're gonna have
Yeah.
football on. Cam, what about you? Any final thoughts?
I'm just looking forward to seeing all the storylines we predict play out. And then my favorite part of sports, all the things that nobody sees coming. The beauty of football, the beauty of sports is all the things that we don't see. And I'm looking forward to just seeing how everything happens. It's a blessing to be able to see all these great games. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how these picks turn out. And we have some interesting differences that could impact who gets the bragging rights in this group next year. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're true. You're very right on that one. That's a very true statement. I'm looking forward to it too. Um, Sorry, I just got distracted. Got distracted there by a text. We're getting close to our fantasy draft. But yeah, I agree with you guys. We're gonna have football on the field. We're gonna have some great off the field stories, some great stuff to digest in January. I'm looking forward to it. By the time we get to January, we'll be unburdened by what has been, and we'll have an opportunity to dive into our picks and who was right and who was wrong. And to your point, Cam, who has the bragging rights. So you guys will have to tune in next time we get together to talk about that. Hopefully we should do a mid-season show. I know we do a playoff. We should do one around Thanksgiving. See how the playoff picture looks. See where we're at. Then we'll look at it again in January. But until next time, guys. Thanks for checking in. That's Kyle Diezel and Cam Casa. I'm Will Highland. You've been listening and watching Field Advantage.